Sunday Surefire podcast. I'm your host, the commish. Joining me today is the co-host, Aaron Downtown Brown,
Hey, hey.
and the other co-host, Ethan Weaver.
Hey, Mish, how we doing?
We are doing pretty well, boys. Doing pretty well. We are coming at you this week with the results of a 12-team dynasty draft. This is not a mock. This is not a drill. These are real live bullets that we have flying around for a live dynasty league that's going to be starting this season and then continuing into the future. So it's a good opportunity here to look at some live data, which is way better than a mock draft, way better than just a random player comparison and or roughly how you value guys. So it's anecdotal in nature, of course, just looking at one league, but it is a money league where there's going to be long-term ramifications. This league is not going anywhere. So those are fun exercises to look at. And the point of this exercise is we're just going to talk about one round at a time. We're going to point out each of our favorite picks in each round. Just kind of give you a sense of where these guys are going and maybe why we like guys who went where they went. It's a 12-team super flex league where the starting requirements are your one quarterback spot, your one super flex spot. You have one running back spot, two wide receiver spots, one tight end spot, and then four traditional flex spots. So it's a relatively deep league, minus the fact that you only are required to start one running back. It's a full PPR league. And like I said, it's a premium tight end premium league, and it's a heavy premium. It's 2 points per reception for the tight end position. So super flex tight end premium, all the rage in fantasy now. I think we all agree it's the best format to play in. So that's the one we chose for this exercise. This draft is actually still underway. So who knows? Maybe we'll even get some some live bullets on who some picks are coming off the board. But we got the first 10 rounds recap for you here. We'll be going through and picking out our favorite guy in each round. I'm going to get us going here with the round one. At the 110, my favorite pick was Joe Burrow. Round one is tough in these. I mean, everyone going in round one is going to be a sexy pick, a high profile name. So I went with Burrow, just because you're getting him at the end of the round. And he's a guy who's been very productive in the past. Obviously, the injury cut his season short in 2023, but he's getting T. Higgins back. Jamar Chase will be in the fold. He's got some interesting rookies to work with too, the former Jermaine Burton and Eric Gall. And I couldn't pass up that value. If I were it wasn't my pick, but if I were on the clock, I probably couldn't pass him up there either. So Joe Burrow late in the first round is a guy that he's very safe from a contractual standpoint, and he's productive when he's out there. So the team doesn't even have a real running back, so I think they're going to pass a ton, and who knows, this could be a career season for Joe Burrow. And so that's what I got here. Who wants to go next? Who wants to tell me what they like the best in round one?
Well, I think Aaron's going to take a little offense to saying that Cincinnati doesn't have a real running back because he just drafted Zach
Oh,
Moss.
that's right. I got Zach Moss. Woohoo. Hopefully for the next 2 years.
I'm sorry to hear that, but go on.
So yeah, Joe Burrow is a good pick at the 110. As you said, the first round is always tough to pick like a best pick, because all these picks are relatively good. I went Jamar Chase just because I think he's in a similar tier as Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, and he went as the wide receiver 4 at the back end of the first round. I like to go quarterback in round 1, so it probably wouldn't be my pick, but I just kind of like the value with Jamar Chase, especially at the 111. Then you can circle back and get your quarterback. So I thought it was decent value with Jamar Chase.
Yeah, it's interesting. We kind of have a spread opinion here and different thoughts where I'm actually going the safe approach. Ethan, I'm going with your pick. I like your Josh Allen pick. Just keep it simple. I think, if you got the first or second pick in the draft, it should probably be either Mahomes or Allen. And, I think with the second spot, you don't panic, even though he lost a lot of receivers coming into this season. But I mean, Allen's still Allen, right? He still has that rushing upside. So I just like the solid pick, safe. Don't get crazy. Don't worry about just the next season. And Allen's going to be a stud for years to come.
Yeah, Ethan, great pick at 102. I don't know how you possibly ended up taking Josh Allen 102 after Mahomes at 101. I don't know how you did pull that off, man. Such a hero. But
Oh yeah, I was sweating it out. I actually wanted Mahomes to fall, if I'm being honest, but I'll live with Josh Allen. So
yeah,
I'll
guys being choosy who he wants at 102.
yeah.
But go on. But speaking of round two, tell us about what you started with round two with. Who do you
Yes.
like there?
So round 2, I liked Justin Herbert at the 2-6. I think Justin Herbert's getting a little too much hate. I get the whole regime change. He lost some of his top weapons. They're going to establish the run. They're going to pound the rock, but I still think Justin Herbert's Justin Herbert, and he was going at probably around the 1.6, 1.7 last year, if not earlier. And now you're getting him at the 2.6 a year later. He was quarterback 9, 2, 11, and 17 last year. That's his 4-year stretch there, but he only played 13 games last year, and people just kind of soured on him with everything that's happened this offseason. I understand the criticism, but I would love to get Justin Herbert in the middle of the second round.
Yeah, Herbert's a good, solid pick there. It actually was sniped right before my pick. I was it's funny. I did not go quarterback round one, so I was counting down the quarterbacks up to my pick. Ended up going with T. Lawrence, but that was really my decision. It was like, hey, it's either Herbert or Lawrence, Herbert or Lawrence. But obviously, had to pick Lawrence there. But that's not actually my second round pick. Here, going back to the league layout where, as we talked about, where tight end premium is a relatively new strategy. I know it's like catching on pretty quickly though, and being it's pretty popular. But with the 2 points per reception, I'm actually going Sam Laporta here in round two, where normally you would think it's a little bit of a reach, but with the 2 points PPR, if this was 2023 stats, Laporta would have been the sixth overall in scoring in 2023 with all your 2023 point score. So very, very interesting to kind of look at that, how that premium really comes into place there. But yeah, when you first see it, it's like, is it a reach? But no, high producing tight ends really go a long ways if they're getting 2 points PPR.
Well, Aaron's got the right team here, but he picked the wrong player. I'm going to go with another Detroit line. I'm going to go with the 2.09. Amon-Ra St. Brown. We talked about Chase. He went 111. For reference, CeeDee Lamb also went 107. And St. Brown has outscored Chase each of the last 2 seasons, and he's the clear alpha in his offense. Obviously, Chase dealt with some injuries last season. Burrow was hurt too, so kind of a lost year for those guys. But if you look at St. Brown's body of work over the last couple of years, I mean, he was a top 5 player in terms of total targets and targets on a per game basis in 2023. I just thought 2.09 was a really nice value for a guy who produces in the same neighborhood as like guys like CeeDee Lamb, and better than a guy like Jamar Chase who went 10 spots earlier. So that's why I settled in at Amon-Ra St. Brown 209.
All right, all right. Well, let's keep it moving over into the third round here, and I'm going with 3-3. I'm gonna stay on this tight end train here, where some fantasy managers out there really might if you're targeting certain tight ends, if you see Laporta come off the board, you gotta look at, what's the tier of tight ends. And I'm going Dalton Kincaid. I think he's really set up for a huge season. We know that Allen likes going to Kincaid in his rookie season too. So I think he's up for a lot of targets in this offense. They're just gonna try to like move the ball down the field this year in Buffalo. So I like Kincaid. Like I said, you got to know your league. The 2 points per catch. I was pretty jealous. I did not get Kincaid in this draft.
I understand why you like Kincaid at the 3-3 here because of the premium. I actually had the 3-2, and I decided to trade back because I like Kincaid, I like McBride, and I like Bowers. I didn't really care who I got there. I was hoping one of these quarterbacks would fall in the 2-3 turn, and they really didn't. I know there's a couple quarterbacks that went a little later that I could have snagged, but one I have in Dak Prescott, I have way too many shares of in Dynasty League, so I avoided them. But I was okay trading back, and I actually got Bowers later in this draft. So I honestly think the best pick in this round is AJ Brown for value wise at the 311. He's was according to DLF, his ADP for June for startup is wide receiver 7, and he was wide receiver 13 off the board at the end of the third round. I think that's pretty good value for a guy that should be a wide receiver one for the next 2-3 years minimum. So I thought it was pretty good value with AJ Brown at the end of the third.
I was torn between two guys here, and one of them actually was AJ Brown, but ended up going probably no surprise to this group with the guy selected just ahead of AJ Brown at the 310. I went with my boy Puka Nakua. Obviously, crushed expectations in 2023. And I know some people are kind of worried about Stafford retiring someday soon, but you could say the same thing about guys like Kirk Cousins, who's the same exact age as Matthew Stafford. You could say the same thing about Aaron Rodgers, who's entering his age 40 season. And I feel like that never gets held against guys like Garrett Wilson or Drake London. We only talk about it when it comes to Puka Nakua. And for reference, I mean, both Wilson and London went in the first two picks of the third round, and neither has come close to doing anything like Puka has done in his rookie year. So we've heard Stafford talking about looking for a new contract this offseason, and indications are that he'll probably get something done here closer to the start of the season. So I don't think 2024 is going to be his last year in the NFL, despite some of the lazy narratives around him in that regard. And, if you told me I could grab two cute quarterbacks and get Puka Nakua as my wide receiver one at the back end of the third round, I would be very happy with that start where you get kind of an elite guy in the very early going, another solid number two quarterback who's probably going to finish as QB1. And then I get Puka, who was a top 4 receiver in PPR last year. Like, sign me up, man. I'm good with that start all day long.
Yeah, I think I remember texting Ethan. I'm like, man, I can't believe how far Puka dropped. I remember that live for sure. So I definitely agree with the Puka take there.
Yeah, I think people are just a little worried about Puka. If is he gonna replicate what he did as a rookie? Some people think it's a lock. Other people are a little hesitant, which is why I think he fell. But to the commissioner's point, I mean Drake London and Garrett Wilson at the top of the third, and Puka and AJ Brown at the back of the third. That doesn't really make much sense. Which is why I think AJ Brown and Puka Nakua are being talked about right now.
100%. I would rather have both of those guys before I thought about guys like Wilson or Drake London.
And I'll take it away. I'll move into the fourth round here, and what do you know? I'm gonna talk another tight end. So
Oh God.
I'm going Pitts, man. I think when you look at it, I've been talking on this tight end train tonight, where Laporta's gone, Kincaid's gone, McBride's gone, right? Pitts is really like the last breed of the young tight ends that I think will have. He could have a big turnaround year with Cousins. I think that volume of offense is going to be a completely different story in 2024. So Pitts is still he's young, right? So I do know that obviously you got your Mark Andrews, your Kelseys of the world, but if you factor in, I think Pitts will be a nice contribution to that offense in Atlanta on top of him being so young. I think, like I said, he's really last of the breed in this draft here, to where then you got the age drop off. You got the production, but then you got to sacrifice a little bit of age with the other guys.
It looks like you're having a theme here, Aaron, with all these tight end picks. But I think the only selection you can make here is Dak Prescott at the 4-2. He's going at the 2-3 turn in most dynasty startups, and he's coming off a QB3 season. He's 30 years old, and I still think he has many more good years of football left. QB 16 off the board, I think, is just too low for Dak Prescott. So to get a guy like that, a perennial QB1 in the beginning of the fourth round, I think was a smash pick.
Again, I'm right. Ethan and I are voting in on the same two guys, but for the second round in a row here, I went with a different guy. Dak was my second choice, and it was a close one here. I actually ended up going with Jared Goff in this round. I at the 4-8. I know he's not a sexy pick by any means, but because he doesn't scramble around much, and he's not ever going to be a guy who leads the league in touchdown passes, but he's been a rock solid producer, finishes as a top 10 quarterback each of the last 2 seasons, which is really the time frame that this Detroit offense has really started to pick it up and figure it out. And what was the deciding factor for me here between those two was the extension that Jared Goff just signed. I mean, he's going to be locked into this offense now for the next 3 to 4 years, compared to a guy like Dak, who I do think has a long-term future in the league. But right now he's entering the final year of his contract. So they could get something done with him, and maybe I'd feel a little bit differently about this one. But at this point in time, I like getting Goff a little bit later in the round just because of that long-term security that the extension gives him. And that's just the kind of certainty that I want to buy into with my second QB, especially if I waited until round 4 to grab my second quarterback. You just can't beat the certainty that comes with that. But I'll keep rolling here into my next pick. I'm starting out in round 5 here. Aaron's kind of been our tight end guy going into this draft so far, but I'm going to punch my ticket on the tight end market. For this one in round 5, I went with Mark Andrews at the 509. And I think people are just kind of forgetting just how good this guy has been throughout his career. And it's not like he's coming off a bad season either. I mean, he suffered a season-ending injury in week 11, but prior to that, he was tight end 3 overall on a points per game basis between weeks 1 through 10. And I know Zay Flowers is a thing now, and he's kind of skyrocketing up draft boards, and I get it. I like Zay Flowers myself, but when the two were on the field together, it was Andrews, not Flowers, who was the more productive of the two players in this offense. And just tack on like the 2 point premium as well. I mean, I really like Andrews here in the middle of the 5th round, and at 29 years old, he might not have 10 years left, but he's in his prime for a tight end, and he's going to give you probably 3 more highly productive seasons in this offense tied to Lamar. So I just couldn't pass up the value there of Andrews at the 509.
Me and Pat have been very close in terms of our picks, and I think we finally agreed on one. I think Mark Andrews was
Boom!
was the pick of the 5th round. Like the commish said, he's been a top 6 tight end each of the last 4 years. And then he gets hurt this past year, only plays 10 games. And I feel like people just soured on him. They forget how good Mark Andrews is. When Mark Andrews is on the field, he is Lamar Jackson's #1 weapon. And I don't think it's close. So Mark Andrews at the 5'9" in this kind of format, I believe was a smash.
For sure, for sure. I definitely think Anders comes back this year. Not my pick. I wasn't gonna talk all tight ends tonight, just for the sake of maybe having a little different argument. I'm gonna go right smack dab in the middle of the 5th round. Actually, the personal pick of mine, but going George Pickens here at 5'7", and I think Pickens is an interesting one where um if you really look at, who are the next wide, if you just look at wide receivers that were on the board and that were drafted next, you got Metcalf, right? Higgins, um, McConkey, and Samuel, right? With the exception of maybe McConkey, but with him being a rookie, what all those wide receivers have in common is they're competing with other members that Metcalf has JSN, Samuel obviously has Ayuk, right? So I think George Pickens was looking what's left on the board is an alpha in that offense coming into 2024 with Deontay Johnson's departure. So I really think Pickens could really explode this year. And actually with the recent news of him kind of working in the slot and whatnot, I think he gets a lot more targets and is not just a deep in red zone threat.
No, I think Pickens in the middle of the 5th round isn't bad value until Brandon Ayuk gets traded there. Then he's screwed. But no, I mean Pickens, as you said, he is kind of the lone alpha there right now. Doesn't have a ton of competition for targets at the wide receiver position, so he's definitely a guy that can ascend. And if he does take advantage of the opportunity, he's definitely not going to be a 5th round pick this time next year. So, as you alluded to, the receivers around him, I mean, DK Metcalf, a pick later. I mean, Pickens, I think, is a much more higher upside player than a DK Metcalf, and DJ Moore right before him. Still relatively young, but he's I believe in his 27th season. So I think it was an appropriate spot for George Pickens, but I think he has the upside to ascend value in a year. That being said, I am going to go to my pick in the 6th round. And I hate to continue this theme. And I told myself I didn't really want to pick one of my picks in this exercise here. But I think TJ Hawkinson at the 6'11" in a format like this was a smash spot for him. I know he's coming off the ACL and MCL, but players, I mean, come back from these knee injuries almost seamlessly nowadays. And I'm going to have to be patient with a guy like TJ Hawkinson. But to get a guy with tight end overall #1 upside at the 6'11" back end of the 6th round, I thought was a no-brainer in this format. And I was happy to take the value.
Yeah, I completely agree. Back-to-back rounds here, Ethan and I are on the same page. The first note I wrote down here, this is going to make Ethan really happy, which kind of makes me a little upset. But the first note I wrote down here was easiest call of this entire exercise. Like,
There
Done
we
and
go.
done.
Here we go.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
pump
the
him,
nicest thing I've ever
pump
said
his
about.
guy up.
That's the nicest thing I've ever said about Ethan.
I think it is. I think it is.
Yeah, just look at him. I mean, even last season, 2023, led the league in targets per game, at the tight end position with 8.5. I know Jefferson missed time, but Hawks a clear cut number 2 in this offense. Like, yeah, is Kirk Cousins a hurdle? Yes. Is the injury a hurdle? Yes. But the guy's 27 years old. Like, I'll plug the gap later at the tight end position, even in a heavy premium league, and be patient for a couple months. Worst case, like he's not himself the whole season, but he's young enough where he's going to bounce back from this and he's going to be fine. He plays in a pass happy offense. He's not going anywhere. He's locked in long term. And I like the combination of Darnold and McCarthy for the future enough in this scheme with Kevin O'Connell to love this price tag at the 611.
Hey guys, drum roll here. We're actually all in agreement here in
Here we
in the
go.
6th round with the pumping up Ethan's guy here. So I'm in agreement here with TJ Hawkinson, and I guess my last little piece of tight end trivia here is kind of harping on this premium league, and if you're not in a 2 point league, right, obviously things change a little bit, but um, the quick pop question of going back to 2023 is, who do you think of all people would have came up 4th in points in 2023 out of all position players? You're not allowed to say it because I told you
You
already.
did.
Evan Ingram of all people. So
Okay, yeah.
he had over 100 catches last year, right? So that's not 100 points. That's 200-point value right there. So if you can get, I guess going back to Hawkinson, if you can get targets and catches, that actually starts outweighing touchdowns and all that other stuff there too. But kind of rolling into the next round, kind of going back to what I was talking about with Pickens in round 5. I think as you're trying to build a team, sometimes in the later rounds, then perception of where guys can go can sometimes you can you're in the territory where it's like, hey, go get your guy, or if you got a feeling over a guy that you think is going to be ascending and it's going to rise in value. I'm going Christian Watson here, last pick of the 7th round, where again, I know that Packers wide receiver core is very talented, but it is clear that every time Watson is on playing a snap with Jordan Love, the Jordan Love's go-to is Watson, right? A lot of people are liking Jaden Reed, where he's actually getting drafted ahead of Watson, but he really only plays in 3 wide receiver sets. He's not the true 1 and 2. He's got to come onto the field and only has just over 50% snap share. So I think Watson is a steal in the 7th round here.
That was my pick as well. I mean, people who had startups earlier in the offseason maybe got a better deal on them. Totally get that. I mean, good for those people. But at the 7th round, I'm still willing to click the button on them, particularly at the end of the round. So there's still enough baked in upside here at this cost where I'm happy to click the button on them. And for the reasons Aaron mentioned, I'm not going to add too much to that. We've kind of beaten Christian Watson's name to death
Yeah.
on this podcast in recent weeks and months, so I won't do it any longer, but I'm still willing to draft him at the end of round 7.
Yeah, I was a little hurt when Christian Watson went because according to everybody else, Christian Watson, I should have been able to get Christian Watson at the end of the next round. So I was hoping to get him at the 8-5, which was only a few picks away, and I got sniped. So I definitely like the Christian Watson pick. I definitely agree with that pick. I think just based on ADP and some other things, I think Watson is going later than this in a lot of drafts, which I think we can all disagree with. I think this is an appropriate spot for him, which is why I think he was a good pick right here in the back end of the 7th. I went Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice is a guy I like a lot. At the 7-9, he was wide receiver 32 off the board. And I think if there wasn't the risk of him being suspended, he's going to be suspended. We just don't know how long. But I think Rashee Rice is, outside Travis Kelce, who's aging, I think he's the best target earner that they have in the team. Xavier Worthy's a rookie. He's gonna have to earn his way in the pecking order. Marquise Brown, I like the talent in Brown, but he can never stay healthy. He never plays a full season. Rashee Rice, I know his A dot was low, but Patrick Mahomes was consistently looking at him. And I think when he's back on the field at some point in 2024, I think he is going to be Patrick Mahomes' favorite target still. So coming off a rookie season where he was wide receiver 27, I think he has a lot of room to ascend. So I really like getting Rashee Rice at the back of the seventh.
I got some questions on Rasheed Rice going forward, especially with more competition there. Suspension's kind of a lesser thing to me in Dynasty, but I guess you want to put that on the table too. But in round 7, like, sure, like, I'll definitely take a shot at him there. He's a young player, produced well in the second half of 2023, and he has his role there. I mean, I don't, I think he's going to be the guy that Mahomes gets the ball too quickly, continue to be that guy for that offense, and yeah, there's opportunity long term. So no issue there with Rice in round 7. I'm going to keep the train moving here to round 8. And I'm going back to the quarterback position here. I'm going to go with a guy who was very high on last offseason, and you get an even bigger discount now. It's Deshaun Watson at the 806. And I know the easy thing to do is to hate on Deshaun Watson, but if you actually look at what he did when he was healthy and on the field and finishing games last year, he was pretty productive. In the 5 games he started and finished, he was a top 10 quarterback 3 times. He also had a QB 14 finish, which is perfectly fine in Superflex. And there was one game in there where he was god awful. It was actually a nationally televised. I want to say it was a Sunday or a Monday night game in Pittsburgh. He was terrible. Like, hand up, admit that. But overall here, he's just 29 years old, so he's not an super old player. He still runs the ball. He averaged 28 rushing yards a game last season, which would have been on a 17 game scale, just short of 500 for the year. And you're telling me I can get him 90 picks into the draft as a 22nd quarterback off the board? I still want pieces of that. So all he has to do is stay healthy, and he's going to smash that mark in the short term. And he's young enough that if he can get that a nice rebound here in the middle of his career, then he's going to be drafted a lot higher a year from now going forward. So it's a big year for Watson. I'll say that. But if I can get him this far into the draft, I'm okay taking a shot with him there.
I agree with you completely, and we are in lockstep again. Deshaun Watson was my pick. Just like you said, Kamish, this is a make or break year. If Deshaun Watson can somehow get some of that Houston magic back, he has a chance to ascend this ADP a ton. He's still relatively young. I believe he's 28 right now, but this may be his age 29 season. And at age 29, I mean, there's a lot of years left ahead of him if he can kind of get back on track. So I don't think there's a player in this round that has the upside that Deshaun Watson has, and it can reach the levels that Deshaun Watson can get to. So that's why I really like Deshaun Watson in this round at this pick. I'm just not a big Deshaun Watson fan at all. So I was debating him at a pick earlier. I went in a different direction and got a quarterback a little later, but it's his ADP according to Dynasty League Football in June is 47 overall, QB 20, and you're getting him at the 8-6. So I thought that was a very good selection in the middle of the 8th round.
Yeah, it's funny, guys. We're 3 for 3 here in this round. I also went Watson. I think it's funny if you're listening into us, some of our advice we said, and in last week's episode is, hey, don't forget about your third quarterback. Even if you got your 2, you might need a 3, or maybe you had your eye on Watson here, where that, I think in this case that was a second quarterback, but if I remember right in this draft. But yeah, I mean, also Watson just his rushing upside. He's really the last QB on the board that has true rushing upside, as Commish was saying. So, yeah, good call with Watson. Not gonna spend that much more time since we're all in agreement there. But kind of stay along the same thought process here in the 9th round. I'm actually going Penix in the 9-2 here, where just similar conversation. I think you gotta sometimes look at in Dynasty, you really got to go back and forth. Am I trying to just build my roster out, or am I just or if I'm just getting value, right? And I think Penix's future value is just going to rise, right? So, I mean, getting him in the 9th round, obviously, if you got maybe a startup 2 years from now, Penix is probably going to be maybe a top 3, 4 round pick in the future, right? So, I think if you're looking at the long term goal, I think Penix is if you're comfortable with getting him at the same time, depends on your strategy, but I think Penix is a smart choice there.
Yeah, it's definitely a pick that requires some patience, but I think I like Penix, and it's definitely, like you said, he's a piece that's going to accrue in value as the years go by. And it's Ethan's pick, so uh, another one that he likes. But
Another check
I'll give
mark.
Ethan the floor here for his round 9 pick before I give mine.
Yeah, so I'm in agreement. Aaron, my selection in this round was Michael Penix, just for the simple fact that just looking at the board when I was on the clock, there was a lot of aging receivers, 28 or older. There's a lot of aging running backs, still a lot of good fantasy value players on the board. But I was thinking, hey, in round 9, I'm okay being patient. I'm okay getting value here because I do think, like you said, Aaron, Michael Penix in 2 years may be a top 3, top 4 round kind of selection. So I know it's going to take some patience with Michael Penix, but for me, I couldn't pass up on the upside and the ascent and the future ascension that I see going forward, and picking any of these aging wide receivers or aging running backs in front of him. So that's why I went with Michael Penix. He's that number 8 overall pick in the NFL draft by the Falcons. He's going to get an opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, he's kind of like a savings bond, honestly. That we got back in the day when we were kids. Like, that you buy them for $50, you wait a little bit of time, and they turn into 100 just like that. So it's then if we want to keep the finance lingo going here, then he'll turn into a stock where, hey, maybe if he take when he gets an opportunity, he can take off and become a rocket to the moon, or
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. Let's go. Come on.
So
yeah,
high, so high.
he could
Buy
plummet
low,
back
so
down too.
high.
But at the time, when he gets that gig, like he's already appreciated enough in value if you're willing to wait the 2 years. So in a lot of ways, he is safe and has long term upside. So I do like that pick a lot.
I
But
might
I
have to
didn't.
say the website disclaimer. We're not here to give financial advice.
No, we are.
Oh, yes, we are.
We only do that in the form of betting.
Yeah,
That's
that's what I was
right.
gonna
That's
say.
right.
Yeah.
But speaking of placing bets, I'm going to place one here with my favorite pick in the 9th round. I stuck with the quarterback theme. It wasn't Penix, as much as I do like that pick. I actually went with Matthew Stafford here. 113 picks deep into the draft. I just couldn't say no to Stafford as my second quarterback if I waited at the position and stocked up elsewhere. Or hell, if he's my third quarterback and he's going to be a locked in starter for this year, I'm happy to do that. 26 quarterback off the board, so it's a situation where that position is really drying up fast in the leagues. And I'm someone who likes having a quality third quarterback if I'm trying to contend, especially in the first year. And I think Stafford fits that mold. I can see him definitely feeling like a high end QB2, maybe even if everything lines up well for him this year, and maybe even back in QB1 situation in 2024. So I just think he's a kind of a locked outperform this spot in the draft, at least in the short term.
Yeah, whenever you can get a quarterback of Stafford's pedigree in the 9th round as your third quarterback, that's always a win. He's obviously getting up there in age, but he's a guy. If he can give you 2, 3 years, I think it's a win in the 9th round, just to give you that flexibility at the quarterback position, give you that security. We all know last year there was a ton of QB injuries. So they get a guy like Stafford who's going to put up QB1 numbers, or has QB1 potential, or QB, not overall number one, but QB1 weeks, has that kind of upside. I think that's a very good selection at the 9-5.
I'm gonna double tap here. I'm just gonna round us right into the final round here, round 10. I know that the move is to fade running back in Dynasty, and I get it. I know the move in Dynasty is to fade older running backs. Totally get it. And so this pick might surprise you, but I went with Alvin Kamara at the 10-2. Is he aging? Yes. Does he have a ton of miles on him from a long running back career thus far that started back in 2017? Yes. Do I care? No, I don't. It's around 10 guys. And like we talked about this when Derek Brown was on the show with us a few weeks ago. I mean, Dennis Allen is fighting for his job in 2024. That Saints staff is a down year away from losing their jobs. So if you're in a situation where you're going to go down swinging, are you going to do it with Alvin Kamara, or are you going to do it with Kendra Miller and Jamal Williams, who's aging too? Like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm gonna hand that ball to Kamara a ton. I still got Derek Carr quarterback. I'm going to check that ball down to Alvin Kamara a ton like he did last season. So I know he's getting older, and it's probably a 1, maybe 2 year play here. But if I want to take down the league title in the first year of it, and I only have to start one running back in this format, I'm perfectly fine waiting, stocking up other positions, clicking the draft button on Alvin Kamara in round 10, and figuring out my long-term running back situation later.
No, the
Yeah.
10th. Oh, sorry. Go on, Aaron.
Oh, no, no,
Look, they're
no.
fighting
So
over who wants to give me my
I know.
flowers
Oh
first, man.
man,
They're
man,
fighting over it.
Hey,
Kamara, right? No, I mean it wasn't long ago where I know Ethan
yeah,
was that was his guy.
that was my guy. Still
Kamara,
my guy.
still your
It was
guy.
his guy until he traded him to me.
Yeah. Hey, I still love Kamar.
But yeah, I mean, if they're, we talk Konami code quarterbacks, I mean, Kamara's like the Konami code running back, right? So,
Oh yeah.
yeah, I mean, he gets his catches, I think, in a full point PPR. Like, that's a dream. If you can get pass catching running backs, perfect. I mean, if you're looking at the dynasty manager here, he also has Chase, and AJ Brown too. So obviously is trying to win year one, with contending players. So I don't hate it from that strategy standpoint. If you're talking dynasty value, obviously, you know how we all feel about dynasty running backs these days. I went a different direction. I'm going with the yours truly approach here again, but also I'm going to double tap my pick, but also my homer is I'm here with Hollywood Brown in the 10th round, where I know we talked Rasheed Rice earlier, but with that potential suspension going, there is a high chance where Hollywood Brown is going to be the number one receiver this year for the Chiefs. And when you're talking dynasty, you don't always have to, like we talked this with Debro as well. Like when you're drafting these guys, they're not always going to be on your roster, right? So I think Hollywood Brown is a perfect candidate. You could sell high when he's catching bombs from Patrick Mahomes this year. Trade him, right? Just sell him right at his peak. He's going to be, yeah, Kamish is our birthday guy. He's going to be 27 all the way till next summer, right? So you got the 2024 season still showing that 27 age before turning 28. So I think he's a tradable asset here, grabbing Hollywood.
I like both those selections. As I said with Hollywood, I do like the talent a lot. He's in an amazing situation with Patrick Mahomes, but he just needs to stay healthy, and that's the biggest thing with Brown. I mean, if he has another season where he can't play a full season, which he hasn't done since 2021, uh, it's he's going to be a dying asset, considering he only has a 1 year deal with Kansas City. So who knows where he's going to be after that? I mean, hopefully for him and the dynasty managers who have him, hopefully he has a good season and can capitalize and get maybe an extension with Kansas City or get a decent contract elsewhere. And then to touch on Kamara, I love the player. He's definitely being propped up uh, with his reception totals and the receiving game. He wasn't very efficient on the ground. He had his second lowest yards per carry, and he had his lowest career rushing yards last season. And you saw dips in his yards per reception and yards per target, which were the lowest of his career. So I think Kamara is definitely on the downswing. But as I said, he is going to get a million targets in that offense. So I do think he's going to be an RB1 again this year. I do like Kendre Miller. But Kamara still a very solid asset in the 10th round. If you're a dynasty manager who is trying to win in year one, as Kamish alluded to, it's hard to get a better RB1 on your team than Kamara at this stage in the game. So definitely like the selection in that regard. I went a different direction. I actually went with the third pick of this round with Stephon Diggs. I'm not a huge Stephon Diggs uh, guy. I do think he is on the downturn, but it's tough to pass up on Stephon Diggs at the 10-3. He was a top 12 receiver last year. I know it's a new offense and there are a lot of competition for targets, but I still think Stephon Diggs can have those alpha level weeks. He went off the board as wide receiver 46. Right now, Dynasty League Football has him as the wide receiver 35, overall 85. He went overall 111 here. So I think just in terms of ADP discrepancy, I do think you're getting value here. So even though I'm not the biggest fan of Diggs, if you're trying to win now, what a better pick in the 10th round than Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, round 10 was interesting because it's like all aging players at their positions. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's David Montgomery, it's Tony Pollard, Alvin Kamara, and then it's like receivers like Diggs, Calvin Ridley, who's going to be 30 this year. Allen's on the wrong side of 30. Cup's 31. Rogers is 40 years old, and then a couple other random guys sprinkled in there too that aren't all like Fields is young, but he's a backup. And then Shelton Schultz isn't young, but he's, that's just some leaning into the format. So, yeah, for the most part, it's kind of like the range of the last of the old guard is still there. And you're kind of picking and choosing who you think is going to squeeze out one, maybe two more good years of value here. So I actually think it's a decent plus spot to grab a win now flex piece.
100%. A lot of managers in this league, you can just tell by the board, they valued youth and they valued the receiver position. It was tough to snag youth, especially at the wide receiver position because they were just going much earlier than I guess traditional ADP. So if you wanted that young rookie receiver or that second, third year receiver, you probably had to snag them a round and a half around earlier than typical ADP data. But no, this draft has been a lot of fun. There's been a ton of trades. It's been chaotic at times, so it's what we love in dynasty football here.
No, I agree. I think living it too. I mean, you just look at the screen here too. You see all the white the white names of the teams, right? Those are the trades, right? So like you literally almost have every pick at some point that was traded. And a lot of them were live trades too. So definitely fun. One quick thing on Diggs. I mean, I think if you want to just I mean, I might be splitting hairs there. I would maybe just go Cooper Cup over Diggs, just because he has a slightly less competition than Diggs over there in Houston. But I'm kind of more of a Cooper Cup guy this year. I really think he returns from his injury. Him and Puka may do some nice things this year. But yeah, like I said, at that point maybe you're splitting hairs. But I think if just in the spirit of having a little bit of a debate here, I think I'd rather have Cup than Diggs.
Yeah, it's really fun time of year to do a startup draft. Uh, Months of June and July are the times to get them done before redraft season hits full swing. And we're going to be rounding into more redraft coverage relatively soon. We might have another week or two of hardcore dynasty stuff, but the season is fast approaching. So make sure you're getting your homework done. And if you need any help with your research for your specific league, there's a way to reach out to us. I mean, you can check us out on the Did It app. That's DIDIT. You can check them out on X at Get Did It. That's at GETDIDIT. Essentially, what that is it's a means for you to set up a FaceTime call with one of us here at Sunday Surefire. It's a pay per minute platform. For us, it's only $1 a minute, and we can give you any type of advice what you want, whether it's a dynasty league, redraft, best ball, whatever the case may be. We're ready to go 24/7. We're always on there. Shoot us a DM. We'll set up a time that works for you to get on there and talk. We'll send you notes about your team and notes about what we discussed, so you don't have to kind of worry about jotting things down while the conversation's going on. We'll take care of that part of it for you. And the best part about Did It, guys, is that your first call is free. So you really got nothing to lose by trying it out. Like, so just download the app. It's for iOS users only at the moment, but it's a growing platform out there to get customized fantasy advice. As much as the generic advice is good, it's always better to when you can get an analyst, one of us, to look at your specific team and talk about your specific needs and carve out a winning strategy in 2024 and beyond. But that was our show here tonight, folks. A really good exercise wrapping up this draft. And until next time, peace.